I think a big problem now is that I see is that people want to collect friends. They want more friends. They want to collect them. But they don't think about what's in it for this other person to be my friend.
Yeah.
What am I bringing to the table? And it comes back to that about, well, what is our friendship going to be about? If it's career, how can I help them in their career? I've been listening to your series, and
Oh, great.
it's just a wonderful, wonderful, just library of information to give people, because this is such a nuanced topic and you're looking at it from all these different angles. So I'm very, very excited to be a part of it. And you asked such great questions. I mean, I'm just really excited to chat with you and to
Thank
add
you.
to all this
Thank you.
knowledge
Oh,
you're putting
you
out there.
are. Oh, you are. I am so excited. I loved your book. It was
Oh,
so valuable. It was such a brilliant, and I don't know if before you wrote your book, I'm in the midst of writing my book on relational health. And so, of course, you buy everything on the subject and you skim through most of
yeah.
it. You have big plans for how you're going to read these books. And, sometimes they may or may not come to fruition. But I found that it's like there's plenty of memoir, like straight up memoir. And then there's a lot that's pretty academic. And your book was such a brilliant combination of so story driven. I feel like I definitely feel like I know a lot about you as the author and your history with friendships, but also so practical. And you articulated things that so many people feel in just a really accessible way. And it provides a lot of value for people. So here we are. This is my plug for Anna's book, Modern Friendship. Phenomenal read. Go pick it up, read this book. And so I am thrilled to get to dive more into this, or some nuggets from this incredible body of work that you have created. So thank you so much for being here. And I realized series, I'm just like, oh, turns out I didn't realize my favorite hobby is totally geeking out about friendships and community with people who are friendship and community nerds. So there,
Important.
I'm curious about what are some of the things that just pop out to you as like, wow, really important, really high value. We're not talking about them as it relates to friendship.
Well, I think the biggest misunderstanding about friendship is that affection isn't enough to keep a friendship active.
Say more.
And I think it's such a common misconception of, I love my friends, I never talk to them or see them, but they're my best friend and I love them. And I think this is a tangent, but the biggest problem with friendship is language is inadequate.
Yeah.
We do not have sophisticated language around friendships. It's like food. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you should eat food. It's like, well, kale or cupcakes. I mean, they both have different nutritional things to
Yeah.
offer. And language is inadequate when talking about friendships. And it creates a lot of confusion and it creates a lot of debate. And most of it comes down to semantics of, are we talking about active friendships or what I call nostalgic friendships, where you don't see each other a lot, but there's, a history there and there is affection, but they're not actively part of your life. So even learning those two categories totally was a huge shift for me of,
Yeah.
oh, there's different categories. Oh, there, it's, well, what determines what category a friend is in? How do I
Yeah.
know how do I make a friendship active that's more nostalgic? How do I, play the notes of friendship? I know that's so cheesy to say, but friendship to me, as someone who's thought about it and researched it and have written a book about it, friendship is music. And I used to think my friends were, this is gonna totally like date me, Liz, but CDs of, you put
Okay.
like one
Yeah.
CD on,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in the mood for, No Doubt. I'm in the mood for, whatever, The Cure.
Always in the mood for No
Always in the
Doubt,
mood,
by the way.
always in
Just
the,
side note.
I just heard Hella Good on the street the other day and I was like, this is a really good song.
I love it. I actually legitimately was listening to Gwen Stefani randomly on Spotify on my flight home yesterday. So
There's something there.
I was preparing for
You
this
know, some friends
spiritually.
are a Gwen Stefani where it's like, I'm in the mood for this. And then, friends were like, I'd seek them out on what I was in the mood for. But what I learned about friendship is that you can play the music of friendship and you can create music. And what I mean by that is there was a study done in 2021. And these two researchers found the 5 most common reasons people make friends. And the first is career. Second is mating, because you want to meet people who can hook you up with, people. Third is what they call desirable qualities, which means there's chemistry, there's hobbies and passions in common. The fourth reason is emotional support. And the fifth is what they call sociability. And that means they invite you out, invite you to the book club or the kickball league. And what's interesting is those are the same 5 reasons that friendships fade, is we aren't in the same career. I'm not looking to date and my friend is. So we have different, different things that are compelling to us. When we stop sharing common hobbies or passions, or chemistry is off, I'm not having a good time. I'm not having very much fun. Emotional support. A lot of us don't know how to give emotional support. And if your friendship is based on that, you could alienate your friend unknowingly by, giving unsolicited
Interesting.
advice or like
Oh, yeah.
venting, not asking for consent before you vent and just being to drain. And sociability. If you never ask your friends out, never bring them to anything, don't widen their world, they might go, be with people who do. So that is how you play the music of friendship, just to ground this of, okay, well,
Yeah.
what's, the most important thing I learned about friendship is desire and where desire comes from for one particular friendship over another. And the way desire works in a friendship is that every friendship has an about, and the about needs to be clear and compelling to both people. So I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, but it's so important about desire because people mistake, well, I love my friend, like she's great, but you never call her, you never reach out to her. Why is that? Well, what's the reason to be in touch? Are you offering things that are compelling to the other person? And a lot of what friendship is not very compelling. It's let's get lunch, let's get dinner, let's get drinks. And when you're busy and life is busy and you have competing priorities, it's like, well, get dinner, why? Get drinks, why? Why do you want to get drinks this Thursday? Why Thursday? Why me? There's just a lot that goes unspoken. And
Yeah.
that's when those plans don't happen,
Yeah.
is those invitations just aren't compelling.
Yeah.
So learning a lot what motivates people, what makes them want to leave their comfortable house and their elastic pants and their pets and their partner, you have to put a little more effort in. I mean, it's just more
Yes.
competitive.
Yeah.
So,
And yes, I love that. Like that's I think probably anybody who is in this space would agree. It feels like one of the main principles of building a connected life and social health is that shift into this isn't just something that happens. There is a level of agency. You have to have desire. I love the idea of the role that language plays in friendship and in the way that you phrase it around like you're about. And I think like I articulate the about to the other people. Do you go that far? Is it like I know this?
oh, hell yeah.
But do you like okay, so you're like naming like I just got back actually yesterday from I had been in Arizona for 2 days with 8 other women. I'm an author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, blah 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 blah. And I realized probably about 6 months ago, I've done this flip-flop, not that this really matters, probably too much context, from like building a venture company and that's my main thing, and then the thought leadership was kind of secondary, and I've kind of slowly been transitioning. I sold my company a couple years ago, and now this thing that was my side hustle is becoming more of my main thing, and the main thing is moving into a little bit more of a side hustle role. And so it's been this kind of slow transition. But this past summer, I think something acute happened. And I was like, I literally don't have anybody to call. No one would know what I'm talking about. No one could, like I have friends who are so generous and dear and would listen to me talk about my career, but have no idea what I'm talking about, or like, can offer support in a specific way. And so I was like, girl, you need some friends. You need some friends, but these specific friends that have your same job. That's going to be the qualification. And so I reached out, but I didn't have any. I had 2 acquaintances, literally 2 people I'd never met in person before, but we kind of run in the same circles. And I've had people be like, oh, you should meet so-and-so. And so I reached out to them both, and I stated my intent. I was like, hey, I'm lonely vocationally. Like, I don't have friends with other, specifically women who are keynote speakers or thought leaders, and I'd love to get to know you. Can we start a Marco Polo like group? And they both said yes. And then the idea for there to be some sort of in-person gathering eventually started to emerge. And we were like, we should invite some other people. I had no one to invite because I'm like, I don't have any friends. You two, like, you already know that you're it for me. And one of the other girls was like, had tons. And so she invited, here's 5 friends that are all in our space. And so we all gathered for 2 days in Arizona. And it was, and there was an about, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like, we're here for a specific reason. We are here for friendship and specifically to support and encourage one another in our careers. And it is amazing to me. I know we've both heard the research about how long it takes to make friends, whatever, the
200
stranger
hours.
to acquaintance,
Yeah.
40 hours, and then to stranger to close friend, it's 200 hours. But on my flight home, while listening to Gwen Stefani, I was like, I think those numbers, I'm interested in challenging those numbers based off of certain conditions, because I'm like, I literally spent, it's 48 hours, but it wasn't really 48 hours because we all slept. So let's say it was really probably only 20 hours. And would I call these like deathbed friends? Of course not. I met them on Monday, but like every single one of these women after 48 hours, I feel like I'm like, oh no, they're a friend, and maybe even a close friend, because there was an about, there was such a strong about, intentions were set. And then we used the limited amount of time we had together very intentionally. It was like everybody got 1 hour to kind of share, here's what I'm working on, here's where I'm stuck. Everybody else in the group spent like the entire hour's focus was on one person's life, business, problem, challenge. Do you need support? Do you want advice? Should we workshop this? Do you just need encouragement? So there's a lot of intentionality around the conversations. And so I don't know if I'm like cut out to be doing such statistically significant original research. But I do feel like there are these levers that we can pull in relationships to actually get us to intimacy and connection faster versus just being like, all right, I've got 200 hours before I feel like this person's a close friend, which is kind of intimidating. Like, that's a lot.
Well, this is again a language issue because there's 2 different flavors of friendship. There's agentic and communal. Okay, I call them flavors. Agentic is like agenda. We have an agenda. It's task-based.
Yeah.
So these women, you're together for a reason. This is like how friends form on Survivor. It's because they're all working towards a goal together. And they're
You want to form an alliance?
yes. And those friendships are really strong and powerful. But the thing with agentic friendships is that they tend to detach when the costs outweigh the benefits.
Yeah.
So as long as you're all helping each other and it's all like positive on the up and up, it's going to be really strong. The other kind of friendship is called communal, which is emotional support. And those are your Saturday night hangout friend. Like I think of it as bra on or bra off. Like if your bra is on, it's probably agentic. You're probably working on something together. It's a Tuesday afternoon. If your bra is off, no makeup, that's the communal one probably. But my best friend is both. So your probably best friend is someone you do bra on and bra off things with. So that's why those agentic friendships are so powerful, is because we are working on something together. And
yes, that's so good. And there is a risk, right? Where it's like, there's a risk to those friendships. And the reason that I wouldn't index my entire kind of social friend intimacy to an agentic group, thank you for teaching me a new vocabulary
I love
word,
this shit.
is really around the risk of, I don't ever want to be in a place, and especially in some more kind of intimate coaching, consulting with really high level leaders, one of the realizations that I had was you get to a certain degree in your career, you've got power, you've got privilege, you've got prestige, you've got money, you've got all of the things. And this need to maintain all of these external things, the pressure grows and grows and grows.
Mhm.
And I think some of that is like lifestyle creep, right? Like all of a sudden now, like you've built this life that demands that you make this much money. It used to be optional and fun. Then you habituated to it. Now it's like, oh my gosh, if I lose my job or my company goes under or we don't hit our goals in Q4, I got to pull my kid out of the school that they're going to or move to a different neighborhood. And friendships are also, I think, a big part of that. If your entire social circle is predicated on these agentic friendships, there's this enormous risk that it's like you got to keep playing the game and you got to keep playing the game to the level that all of these people are playing the game so you continue to try, drive value and support and not to make people out to be like monsters by any means. I don't think that this intrinsically means like, oh, you're using your friends, especially if like in this group of women, it was like, well, we were all on the same page that this is what we wanted out of these, friendships. And for me specifically, I'm like, I don't need more bra off friends. I'm good. I'm good on bra off friends. And I would not get on a plane and leave my family,
Yes.
leave my kids for 2 days to go hang out and make some more bra off friends because I'm good in that department. What I need are friends that are in this different kind of ecosystem and a different nature and kind of texture to those friendships. And so I think it's really good
Mhm.
to be aware of like what even the risk profiles of each of these, friends are. In the same way that maybe these communal friends, there's like proximity would be a huge thing. That it's like I have a couple friends that are such an important part of my life and really a part of my community. That I'm like, I'm pretty clear-eyed that if we move to New York City next year, and if this friendship had to move to, we talk on the phone, and we are sending texts and memes back and forth to one another and getting together in person, flying across the country to be with one another a couple times a year, we probably won't be close friends. And I think it's really good to be kind of clear-eyed about that and know what you're getting into as you think about your like portfolio of belonging and social health.
Liz, this is modern friendship. I mean, your grandma, I don't know your grandma's,
Betty, rest in peace.
Betty, I mean, her friendships probably looked wildly different
Yeah.
than yours. I mean,
Yes.
my grandma's friendships, she's known since first grade. They all lived
Yep.
in the same town her whole lives. I mean, even that you're talking about how your friendship would navigate a change in location. It's like that's so new for people to
Yeah.
have to even
Yep.
think about. And
Totally.
that's what I really wanted with this book was to give validation of, we live in a hyper
Mm.
fluid culture. This
Yes.
is historically new. So of
Yeah.
course our social lives are going to reflect this hyper fluid culture we live in where there's a high churn rate to friends. We lose half of our friends every 7 years. And that's because our identities shift. Who we are changes way more than past generations.
I have a question because I've heard that
Yeah.
statistic a lot. I believe the sources. Do you personally identify with that statistic?
Yeah. Because when I
You
look
do?
back at my identity 7 years ago was journalist. So my
Mm.
friends were people who affirmed that identity of these are my journalist friends. Now my identity is an author. So I have author groups, I have author friends. So
Okay.
it's really, and this can happen for women if my identity is now a mom. Now my identity
Yeah.
is, a mom of a lacrosse kid. My identity is, we change so much, even
Mm.
just being child free. Like it may
Yeah.
not be an identity when you're 25 to be child free, but then when you're 37 and your friends start marrying and having kids, it's like, well, actually, I would rather seek out people who don't have children. So that
Yeah.
changes all the time. I used to be into punk rock. I was a punk rock kid, going to shows, way into punk. And then all my friends were into punk. And then my friends started going to raves in college. And I'm like, so then I had to renegotiate that of like, well, do I want to go to
Yeah.
raves? I mean, this happens all the time. our grandmas were not like, hey, I'm a punk and now I'm a raver. What does this mean for my friendships? Like they didn't have to
Right.
do that.
And I do one thing that you did so well in your book. There was just this very fine line that I feel like you got across very clearly, which was your book felt like such a generous lightening of the shame burden. Like if this is something you're struggling with, and if this is something you feel unsettled with, you feel unsatisfied with, it's not because you're an annoying loser. Like this is a structural problem. And you really, without getting too academic, laid out some of those kind of key structural shifts. Our society has changed, but yet the way that we talk, kind of going back, I guess, to the language model, the way that we talk about this thing actually hasn't evolved to meet the enormity of the actual like structural shift. So it leaves a lot of people being like, and not only has the language not evolved, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I feel like I've been intentionality shamed before, in the sense of like, I've had people say things when I talk about friendship or how I think about friendship or strategize around it, or specifically around, how I co-created this community that I live in. I've had people be like, yeah, I try to be a little bit more like organic in my like friendship making, in a way that made me kind of feel like, oh, I must be like a try hard, like a loser, a little bit too intense, that I'm trying to make all these like formulas and rules and structures. And like, if you were really a person who was like a great friend, all of this would just come very like naturally to you, and you wouldn't have to try so hard. And I feel like what I got in your book, which is, I think, you feel like a kindred spirit, is like, don't feel ashamed. This is not your fault. You did not build this system. You did not consent to this system. You were born into this system that makes this thing fundamentally hard. And at some point, you got to take responsibility. You're in a hard system. And if you want to have healthy relationships and a life marked by connection, actually, it's probably not going to have to happen accidentally. And you're going to kind of have to be a tryhard. And can we like take that phrase back and be like, wear it with pride? Like, I'm a tryhard. I am a tryhard in the friend department. I try hard. And when did that become a diss? I think it should be a compliment.
It's really, I look at it like a health issue, in that I have plans for my education. I have plans for education. I had plans for my health. I have plans for my finances. And I think there's a new conscientiousness around having a plan for your social health too. And what I wanted to do was create something very low lift, like nothing out of anyone's comfort zone. Like it's not complicated, but you do need a strategy. Like you need some sort of strategy of, well, how am I going to get these, this closeness that I'm craving? And also, what am I maybe doing that is alienating my friends? Because a lot of like emotional support, we're not born knowing, and we don't know we don't need to know it when we're younger, because our problems are much more simple. I mean, it's just like, when I have a bike and can only go to 7-Eleven for like the $2 in my pocket, like I'm not juggling all these, all these problems that we have now that are just so much more complex. So it's like, listen, we never had to practice friendship like this before. This is a whole new world. And it really...
Okay, if someone is listening to this and is like, okay, yes, and there is this self-reflective part of it, right? Where it is like, there is a pretty direct line between your own self-introspection, self-awareness, and the quality of your relationships. Like there is a level of like, you got to kind of know yourself. And, I do these things called connection cohorts for really high capacity leaders. And one of the first questions that I ask, because I'm trying to kind of match people up that are of certain leadership levels and really create community for them, but then also like teach them the skills of like, this is how we do intimate, close, authentic, committed relationship and kind of peer support. And one of the first questions I ask in my application is always, what's the hardest part about being on the other side of you? Like, what's hard about you in friendship? Because it's a very quick way to know how introspective, how much work someone has done. It's not about not being difficult. We're all annoying. Like we are all one of my best friends and I, like our highest form of verbal like love that we give to one another is looking at each other and going, you are so annoying and I love you. with this acknowledgement that it's like, we can't please everybody. We're all kind of neurotic. We all bring our own form of just like ways in which we're difficult and annoying. Friendship is about one, being aware of that, and in some ways mitigating some of the ways that we're annoying, but not trying to achieve perfection of being the least annoying person ever. And there being mutual grace and understanding, and maybe even in some ways, the way that you are actually annoying, we can laugh about, and I have affection for it because I have affection for you. But it is shocking the amount of times that people are like, oh no, I'm great. Like, it's great to be on the other side of me. And it's like, okay, I know that this is going to be a tough one to place in the cohort. So if anybody's listening to this and they're hearing you talk about self-introspection and kind of self-awareness, and they're like, I don't know, am I self-aware? Am I doing that? What would be like one or two first steps that you would give to somebody to encourage them before, and maybe not before you go out and try to make friends, everything we can parallel path, but like, hey, on your friendship journey, don't forget to be self-aware. I don't know. How do people do that?
Wow, what a great question. Let me think. The first step, I mean, aside from reading my book, which walks you through like beat by beat of like, what is your
really does.
deal?
Yeah.
Literally, like, what is your deal? I think a big problem now is that I see is that people want to collect friends. They want more friends. They want to collect them, but they don't think about what's in it for this other person to be my friend.
Yeah.
What am I bringing to the table? And it comes back to that about, well, what is our friendship going to be about? If it's career, how can I help them in their career? If it's desire and like hobbies and passions, well, do I have a budget for, roller skating? I want to go roller skate. I want to be a roller skating queen in like neighborhood. Like really thinking, well, what are my strengths and what am I bringing to the table and what am I offering? I think too many people are like, I want friends. And then they suggest things that aren't really that compelling.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention was that the internet's what's changed our friends. And so much of what friends would provide, you can find on the internet. Like, I want to find out what movies should I be watching. I go on a subreddit of great films. I don't need to know a cinephile friend to spend time with to be like, tell me, what movies should I be watching? So our challenge with modern friendship is, what can we give one another that you can't just search on the internet or hire someone to do? I mean, friendships used to be about favor economy.
Yes.
Can I borrow sugar? Can I borrow a cup of sugar? Can I borrow an egg? And now it's like, it would be seen as gauche if you're like, hey, can I have sugar? They'd be like, what's wrong with you? Go to this. Why is it my problem?
One of the kind of core, like, stated things that we do in our community is normalize interdependence. Rule. The community agreement is, before you go out and use a service, buy it new, go to the internet, that we actually ask each other first. Just like put it in Slack and see, does somebody have that you could borrow? Does somebody happen to be available to take you to the airport? Like, in people, truly, it's like there are whole cultures of friend groups where it's like, if somebody were to ask for a ride for the airport, what that actually signals is like, you don't value my time. You don't make enough money to afford an Uber.
Yes.
Like, it's like all of these things, as opposed to being like these things are not just like beneficial, but in some relationships, specifically those kind of proximate support relationships in today's age and culture, if we don't manufacture ways to provide support for one another, we won't do it. And that's very different, obviously, than a lot of the rest of the world. A lot of my work was born out of growing up in upper middle class mid-America, moving to Uganda when I was 22 and going, here's all of these things that I thought were like the rules of being an adult, the rules of being a human. And what I'm realizing is like, no, those were all social scripts that are like actually very unique to America and then to my culture in America. And the reason why, there is a correlation between the collectivist cultures, about 75% of the world, which operates out of a collectivist worldview and mentality, and the, 25% that operates out of an individual mentality. There is a wealth component to it, right? And the vast majority of the hyper individual countries are also some of the higher income. And a lot of the collectivist cultures are lower income. And so there is this sense, and listen, I'm not glorifying poverty. It's like my whole day job is like helping to eradicate extreme poverty, and we need to not be like, oh, they're so poor but happy. And like, so we don't have to care about them being poor because they're happy. That is not what I'm saying. But isn't it interesting that we think they're happy, even though they're poor? Like there's something going on there. And so that of our economic situation demands interdependence. And then that interdependence is actually what creates resiliency, dense networks of support, strong social ties, better mental health, because there is this sense that I'm not alone. I have people to.
And what I recommend is being discerning of, well, these are the people I'm going to do this with. And so much of what modern friendship tells you is like, really just get it where you can get it and cast a wide net and look at all these friends you can have. You open your app and it's like, look at all my friends. It's like overwhelming. And what I'm suggesting is really just pick a few people and be an outstanding friend to a few people. And it is life changing. But I want people to pick good candidates. Now it's like, to be discerning with who am I extending this? Why am I extending it? What is our friendship about? Like, what is our history? Do we share values? Is this someone that is a good candidate to invest in? And once you do the work of, well, these are the people I keep close. This is why I keep them close. This is the role that they play in my life. Here's the role I play in their life. It's like, why wouldn't I prioritize this friendship? Look how much we give one another. And that's very different than the script of friendship is like, well, just reach out to people, just text them. Let's meet up. How are you? Thinking of you, which is very superficial and not tailored and doesn't lead anywhere.
Spray and pray situation.
It's a spray and pray and it's not working. And people are like, friendships are hard and they suck. And it's like, well, your strategy is very low effort. I mean, it's a very low effort strategy.
And then it's like this unfortunate cycle where they have a terrible strategy that's pray and spray and just like say yes to more social things and text people randomly. And then they don't get the response that they were hoping for. Yeah. And then that's really deflating. And then that creates shame and discouragement. And so now the narrative is, I tried. I don't know if you run up to this in your work. It's like, I'll meet people and be like, yeah, I believe in this social health thing, but I tried. And it didn't work. And I'm like, that's like saying you're thirsty and you're super frustrated because you had water 4 days ago. And like, you're just frustrated. And like, I tried to drink water and I'm thirsty. Yeah. And just being like, oh, okay. So that's like not how this works. I'm curious when you were talking about this and just like the strategy, values alignment, what can I do for them? What am I willing to invest? Do you feel like it's a helpful, maxim, I don't know if that's the right word, to just tell people to think about their friendships more like romantic relationships? Because I think that we intuit a lot of that when we think about romantic relationships, where we're like, we're not just hopefully dating anybody that's like, remotely interested in us. Like we're thinking about, do our values align? We're thinking about like a shared purpose. We're thinking about, we have a standard. We're also holding ourselves. When you're dating, especially, it's like you're kind of trying to like show your value, I think, in the sense of like be a meaningful contributor to the relationship. You're expecting that you're going to hit some bumps along the way and that you're going to have to talk through that and like have conversation and do some reconciliation and repair and some define the relationship conversations along the way. I don't know. Do you feel like that's a helpful, like, can we just think about friendship like this other script that we've like written and rewritten and have so many of in our culture?
I've been thinking about this a lot actually, and I've been reading a lot about this, and friendships are very different than romantic relationships in that romantic relationships are public. A lot of our friendships are more of a private sphere. Romantic relationships impact our identity in a way that our friendships necessarily don't. I mean, you can have 10 friends, but you have one partner. So I think that there's overlap in like, these are intimate relationships and these are friendships that I want to invest in for certain reasons. And we play certain roles for each other. I think romantic relationships, well, people have a lot of issues with those too. It's not like we've solved that.
Nailed it. 50% success rate, crushing.
I think people, I mean, this might be a little spicy, Liz, but I think that people want to make their romantic partner their best friend, but don't really understand how best friendship works. And like,
Yes.
so you're
Say
adding
it.
on more expectations and pressure to a relationship without even really understanding how friendships operate. Um, and friendships are, I don't sleep with my friends. Like I don't do that. I don't plan my life with my friends. I don't, share bills with my friends, but then to copy paste the friend, like making that your romantic relationship is an interesting strategy. I've been really thinking a lot about this is how do you have intimate relationships in the modern day when things are so different?
Yeah.
Things have changed so much between what we look for in a romantic partner and what we look for in a friend. And we need to,
Which I do think the flip side of that, you talked about this idea that we're now like my romantic partner needs to be my economic partner, my co-parenting partner, my mortgage paying partner, also my best friend. And there's some really interesting research, and I think maybe you cited it in your book, but correct me if I'm wrong, around I run up to oftentimes people kind of pitting marriage or their romantic relationships against friendship. Like for every hour that I'm spending out with my friends, I'm not spending it with my partner. But what the research actually shows unequivocally is that people with healthier, more robust, more long-term intimate friendships tend to report higher levels of happiness and satisfaction and even longer marriages. And so it's kind of counterintuitive, right? That it's like, no, but I'm spending less time investing in my marriage to go like I'm investing in people outside of my marriage, but that's actually creating this really symbiotic thing where I'm healthier, I'm more fulfilled, my partner experiences less pressure and doesn't need to be my everything. We're kind of taking care of ourselves in a certain way. And then we do get to come together, of course, and take care of one another in a very unique and special way if you believe in monogamy and are not also
Mhm.
sleeping with all of your friends. And obviously in ways other than just sex. But that I find to be a pretty big myth in American culture, that it's kind of like, oh, every hour I spend with my friends, I'm spending away from my partner, and therefore it's going to be to the like detriment of my marriage.
What I'm learning is what men, this is generalizing, but women and men practice friendship very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very fraught because a lot of women say to their men, your friendship should look like mine. Why don't you go out and, have more time with your male friends? But a lot of women don't understand the very real challenges that their partner is having. Um, I want to create more empathy around it and more non-judgment because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times women might be shaming their partners unwittingly and saying
Mm-hmm.
your friendships don't look like mine. Something's wrong here. And that's not helpful and that puts men on the defensive and they're feeling very attacked by this
Mm-hmm.
suggestion. So I really want to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to talk about this in a way that invites couples to how do we create scaffolding in our relationship to set us up for success and not look at it like a scarcity mindset of 1 hour away from you is 1 hour, like this is a scarcity mindset. How do we have a more abundance mindset? And I think it's easier for women because women in midlife want more interdependence with their friends. They want to be a part of their friends'
Mm-hmm.
lives. Men want more independence from their friends' lives. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be criticized or judged. Like they just have very different needs. So that's really the
Do you think, okay, and this is probably you're the problem, Liz, with what I'm about to
no,
say out of my mouth,
no.
and that's okay. But like, there's this part of me that's like, but do we accept that? Or do we say, actually, it's better? Like, I feel I kind of I'm gonna use an analogy that may or may not work, but there's been like a lot of so Sheryl Sandberg, it was like her whole deal was like lean in. Like men built the system. This is how to be successful in the system. If you want to be successful in the system, you have to act more like a man. I'm obviously paraphrasing that,
Right,
and it was
right.
much more
Yes.
nuanced and thoughtful than
Yes.
that. But that was kind of the
That was the
thing.
gist.
That was the gist. And, some people loved it. It worked for them. Obviously, there was a lot of cultural critique later about it. But I'm kind of thinking like when it comes to relationships, there is part of me that is like, statistically speaking, and listen, women are being hugely impacted by the loneliness epidemic. So it is not like one group is crushing and they're doing great and another one is really suffering. But unequivocally, on a lot of different measures, men are even worse off than women. So at what point can we say, like, even this point that you made about like at midlife, women are leaning into interdependence and men are leaning into independence? Do we go, okay, well, let's let them be where they're at and meet them where they're at and work within the structure around, growing independence, versus going, that's not a recipe for relational health. You should do it more like we are. And like, it doesn't have to manifest in the exact way, but like actually unequivocally leaning into interdependence is going to increase your social health. And you actually probably are going to have to try a little bit harder because you're more socialized to be independent. Like women have it way easier in this specific realm of like, it's hard for a woman to ask for help. I think it's 10 times harder for a man to ask for help because they've been taught and socialized in a patriarchal capitalistic society that their core value and worthiness comes from how successful they are and how able they are to care for themselves and for their nuclear family if we're in America. So I guess my thought is like, okay, I think we can recognize that it's much more challenging for a man in midlife to lean into interdependence, but do we have to say we can make both work? Because I don't know if I believe that we can make both starting points.
Men are assholes to each other. And I'm saying this from other sources I've read. This is not my personal opinion, but men are competitive with each other and they're assholes to each other. And it really is a culture-wide initiative that has to happen to help men feel more comfortable and create a permission structure. Like, I kind of look at it like restaurants, beer halls, and cafeterias. Okay, women's friendships are.
I love all of your. You do such a good job of like your little word pictures. Sorry, keep going. I'm just fangirling.
Women's friendships are restaurants. It's like, Liz, how was your meal? How are you doing? What would you like? Would you like some with a lot of care and nurturing? Men's ideal friendships are beer halls. They want a group. They don't want the pressure on themselves. They want to be part of the mix. It's more independence. You come in and out. But men's friendships right now are cafeterias, in that they're shitty restaurants that they don't want to be in. It's like, it's not all the guys get together and like do their thing. It's, oh, I went out and got a beer with, Dave, and yeah, we didn't really talk about anything. We watched the game. And they'd rather be with their wife who offers a restaurant experience. They're like, why would I go to the cafeteria with Dave when I have a wife right here who I love being with and I love eating out at her restaurant? And then you're like, babe, where's the beer hall? And there's a lot of sociological reasons why the beer hall isn't happening right now. Men spend more time with their children. Men are, working longer hours for work. Men, like they're just doing other things with their time. So really, it's a beer hall issue. And listen, I'm on it, Liz. I am working on it. I'm like, how do we get men into the beer hall? How do we lower the threshold? But that's really the issue, is that men's friendships are a cafeteria and they're having a bad time and they'd rather just go out with their wives. But wives would rather
be at the restaurant.
Be like,
with their,
so that's the core tension, is women are so enjoyable to hang out with. Everybody wants to hang out with women. I get it. We're great. I'm a fan of women. So it's like, well, how do we make it more attractive for men to leave the restaurant and create a beer hall for them?
The only thing I think I would gently push back on is anytime I hear somebody say this is like a culture-wide issue that we need to attack. Now, if it's in community and connection, which is my passion, great. I'm like up for the challenge. Anything else, I'm like, I can't change the food industry. I can't change pharma. And so I kind of like check out. And I do think, and I'm interested in hearing your opinion on this, when it comes to social health, I actually think like we can have podcast conversations and read books about the structural issues. And I think that that's fine. And we can advocate for whatever, if it's policies, if it's how we're planning our cities, these high level things. And a small percentage of people will, but the vast majority of people are like, I'm just trying to raise my kids, keep my job, pay my mortgage. And I think in some ways, I worry that it like subtly undermines that. It's like, it kind of going back actually to something you said earlier on in the conversation. is 2 or 3 extraordinary, intimate, committed friends where you're going, I'm going to be a phenomenal friend to you, and you're going to be a phenomenal friend to me, will change the entire trajectory of your life. And like, it's actually not this, it is. It's both and. There's this big structural problem, and you actually don't have to change the huge structural problem in order to change a very actually tiny circle that then will have a profound impact on your entire life. And so it's like, even for in the conversation with men, it's like, well, gosh, I mean, obviously it's different is your work as a researcher and communicator and journalist, but for the average person who's listening to this, it's like, well, do we put our resources into like talking about the system, or do we go, what would it look like to develop literally 2 or 3 close, proximate, interdependent, committed relationships, and just creating a little bit more norm around the possibility of like, maybe culture doesn't have to change. And then, it's like the reverse of that is if enough people go, I'm just going to change my own life and change the norms in my life. And then somebody looks over and goes, oh, wait, you can do that? Like I can have that. And I'm going to start doing that for myself. Then that is actually how culture changes. And now maybe we actually have a beer hall culture as opposed to being like, let's build the beer halls. Does that make sense? I really tried to follow
the
metaphor. Restaurant beer hall analogy.
Like, I really think men just love being with their wives too much, and they love being with their wives more than other men. And I'm going to look more into this, you guys. Watch this space. I'm going to look more into this, but people get married later, and the kinds of people getting married, like it's impacting their choices of who they want to spend time with. And I think that marriages are such higher quality now. And there's more that I really think men would rather just be at home and watch like play a video game or do the internet and be with their wives and pets more than other men. So that's what they're working with is why would I not? I mean, that's what we're working with. It's so easy to be online and not have to leave your house. I mean, men would get together to escape the boredom of marriage. They would go out after work because they're like, I don't want to go home to like the wife and kids. But now men are spending twice as much time with their kids. They're not doing that. They're not saying, oh, I can't. I'm going to go out and have a beer. My wife is on her own. Like our marriages are better. They're stronger. But this is the trade-off. The trade-off is that they're not wanting to this is generalization out the wazoo.
Sure.
Like obviously there's men out there that are, that have this, do not have this as an issue.
Yeah.
But I do think it's that the home life is so much better than it's ever been that there's no reason they're not seeking out other men because men aren't better than what they have at home. That's what I think is happening.
I'm interested. I'm also like you do. It does seem like you have a very high view of modern marriage that I might not share, of like the assumption that marriage is so much more high quality today. Because then I'm kind of like, why are 50% of people getting divorced?
Well, that's part of the happiness. It's like the couples that do stay married are much happier, and usually they're older.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. Whereas it's like 50 years ago, it was like, if you're in a shit marriage and you hate your life, you're kind of in it. And now it's kind of like, if it's bad enough, I will change my circumstances, which raises the kind of quality of current people married. Okay, I get that.
Yes.
Okay, one last.
Yes.
I'm mindful of your time because I could talk
about this forever. I'm literally reading all of this stuff right now, so I'm so excited to talk about it.
Can we have like a book club or an article club or something, please?
Yes,
can you be my friend?
Yes.
Can you be my friendship friend?
Oh my God, of course, Liz. That would be an honor.
Okay, so I would love for you to. 100%. And t-shirts, it's going to be a whole deal. Watch out. Watch this space in Anna's words. Okay, will you give folks, so one thing that I run into is that I think a lot of people think to be socially healthy and relationally rich, you have a lot of friends. And that feels really overwhelming to people. And also there's people like me, who this always surprises people, that I am not a quantity gal. I am not. I'm overwhelmed by big groups of people. This really surprises people. If you threw me a birthday party here in Portland, Oregon, and we're like, hey, give me a list of 100 people that you really want to be there, that you're really confident would show up for your birthday party, I would immediately get hives. I would just be like, oh, that's like a lot of people. And I don't know enough people that I like definitely want them to be there. And like that I know that they would be there. So like your kind of like wedding list, guest list area for me is not where I find a lot of life and joy. And yet I would rate myself as very socially healthy. And it's not coming from having a mass amount of friends. And I think that that is, I think for some people, that is like, that matters. And for other people, actually, those core intimate, like inner circles actually provide a lot of value. And we have some old social science called Dunbar's number that kind
Yeah.
of helps us understand there's actually some science around this of kind of how there are rungs of intimacy and friendship,
Mhm.
and there are numbers associated with these rungs. And for each person, it's a little bit different, but there are kind of some general rules. And because you're the wordsmith that you are, you've got a great analogy to kind of take this sociological concept in a sticky way. Will you tell people about kind of these rungs of friendship, what they are, and why it's even helpful to kind of know about
Yeah,
this?
thank you, Liz. This is a great question. This is taken from Dunbar's research, and I wanted to make it more intuitive to highlight how fluid our friendships are. And I came up with this idea thinking back to a pool party I went to, and how, you go from the jacuzzi to the swimming pool. So that inspired me for this, this rubric, this matrix. And Dunbar found that the most intimate tier we have, I call the bathtub, because not many people can fit in. And for men, it's usually one person, usually their significant other. For women, it's usually two people, their significant other and a best friend. The next tier I call the jacuzzi, and that's 3 to 5 of your closest friends. Those are people you've spent over 200 hours with. You have deep commitment, deep intimacy with them. Bra off, bra on, maybe both. Like that's the tier. The next tier I call the swimming pool, and that's the 10 to 15 people, maybe people you double date with, maybe your favorite coworkers, people you house sit for, pet sit for. Then the next tier I call the beach bonfire, that's 50 people. And then the outermost tier I call the water park, and that's 150 people. That's what,
Which coincidentally, I also literally hate actual water
yeah,
parks. So
right.
your analogy really
Like water
pays for
parks,
being
that's a
wet
lot of people.
in
And
public and
it's
like,
gonna be wet
okay,
in
anyway.
public. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
You don't know. You do not know what that liquid is.
But
Let's just name it.
one of the first things I learned about friendships is that they can end at any time for any reason. Like they can be very
Mm.
fragile. So I wanted to show how fluid these groups are. And someone can be your jacuzzi friend, and then 6 months later, 2 years later, you look back and you're like, well, actually our friendship is bumped down a notch, and you can diagnose why. Well, what is our friendship about? Like, what has changed? How compelling is that to me or my friend? And you can chart like the flow of friendships and
Mm.
diagnose it. Like I've never seen anything where you can diagnose why a friendship is close or
Mhm.
not close.
Mhm.
And you can understand why friendships are active or nostalgic. It's like, well, how often do we talk? What are we talking about? How important is that to me? And then you can go from there. At least it's more information,
Yeah.
and that's concrete information you can use.
Love that. I think that that does two really important things. One, for me, I hope that it makes people feel like social health is actually much more in their purview and available to them, because it's not this never ending thing. It's not like just this accumulation thing. And this is where I love thinking about how it's different than even like accumulating wealth, where it's like two things happen when people start really focusing on accumulating wealth, I think, or that becomes their singular focus. Is a lot of times there is this sense of like more is more is more. Like the richer I am, the richer I am. Oftentimes, of course, in the finish line just continues to change. So it's like you make more
Goalposts
money,
always
you
moving.
accumulate more.
Yeah.
Totally. You start hanging out with different people, you live in a different neighborhood.
Mhm.
Now there's this next thing to kind of achieve or keep up to. And then of course it's like, duh, like everybody says it at the end of their life, like, oh, it turns out it doesn't matter, but we can have a million people who've told us that. And we're still like, no, I think for me it does. And so we keep chasing it. So it's like, it's never enough. And then the second thing, and this of course doesn't always happen, but a lot of times it's at the cost of someone else. Like if we're attempting to accumulate power or wealth, a lot of times it's not, unless you're really intentional about it, you might do that at the cost of other people. And what I love about relationships is, one, there is actually kind of to your point, there is a natural cap. So it is kind of like you don't need an unending amount of bathtub, jacuzzi, or pool friends. You don't. And not only do you not, but one of the kind of concepts that I have is that like actually intimacy doesn't scale. So there is this natural limiter to like, if you try to either scale an intimate space to allow more people in, you will probably degrade the environment that has contributed to helping foster those intimate relationships, or naturally the relationships with the people in the bathtub and in the jacuzzi, if you are adding more people in, the quality of the existing relationships will diminish, because there is just a finite amount of energy, attention, and intimacy that we can have. And I don't think people take that seriously enough. And I think for very good reasons, but misguidedly as it relates to friendship and community, we've made exclusivity bad and inclusivity good, or at least I should say in certain circles, we've done that. And I think that that's not very wise when it comes to community building and friendship building, because actually exclusivity is a key to protecting intimate relationships. So, but I say that to say, I find it to be quite motivating to be like, wait, there's a number. And once you get that number, and like to your point, there's going to be natural, like people are going to come, people are going to go. You're going to have to constantly be nurturing, and there are going to be this natural cycles. And so, yes, of course, you're tending to it, but that is very different than like more is more is more is more. And I think that that makes it feel quite achievable, of like, no one's asking you to be like the prom queen of your city. It's like, no, having 2 or 3 really close friends and then about a dozen kind of folks that know you, love you, and support you will change the entire fabric and quality of your life. Give yourself a few years. You can do that. It's not this never ending, it's never going to be enough, we're never going to be satisfied. Like, you will reach satisfaction. There's like a satisfaction level in friendship that is available to you. It will require work, strategy, intention, constant cultivation and tending. But it isn't this kind of like pie in the sky, like, well, no one ever gets that. No one's ever actually happy socially. And that to me feels really like empowering. And I think that metaphor that you give people of the bathtub, the jacuzzi, the
swimming pool,
the beach
bonfire,
and the water park. Yeah. I don't know. That just feels like you can wrap your head around it and be like, this isn't crazy. This isn't never ending.
And the other quick thing I want to add is the better friend you are, the more competitive it will be to be your friend. And you will get higher quality friends. You will get higher quality friends the better friend you are, because you can be more discerning. You don't have to just say yes to any invitation. You're like, that's actually really, friendship is a marketplace, just like romance, to your point. Like, they are similar in that the better friend you are, the more loyal, the more, the better emotional support that you can give, the more competitive it will be for your time, and you will
that is
choice
so
of better
interesting.
friends. I know.
I've never framed it like that before. But but I think I've internalized it. I don't know if you feel this way. The minute I meet a woman who's like, oh, women, like I have a hard time with women. I'm like, I'd have a hard time with you. That's how I know. My number one indicator that you're a hard woman to be around is that you think women generally are hard. It is the hugest red flag for me in relationships. If you're just like, women are this, women are catty, women are competitive. I'm like, you are catty, you are competitive, you are hard to be around. And so I feel like maybe without realizing the concept that you just shared, actually have internalized, like, if you don't experience, if that's how you experience the world, the common denominator in the 300 people that you're talking about, I just don't believe it. I don't believe that you've been only catty, competitive,
Yeah.
narcissistic, no good women. I'm like, oh no, you do. You're the number one common denominator
I
between
mean,
all of those women.
there was a study done of basic traits we expect in our friends, and it's trustworthy, loyalty, and reliability. But then there's
Okay.
the luxury traits in a friend,
Ooh, say more.
which
I love
are
luxury.
which is forgiveness, offering forgiveness,
Mm,
paying back financial debts quickly.
mm.
Um, there's two more, you guys, and I will send the study, but it's like the idea that if you do those luxury traits of, being like a really great, reliable person, you will get higher quality friends because your friend will not let you go. If you are forgiving, if you pay back the money you say you're
Mm.
going to pay back, if you really go above and beyond, they're going to work harder to keep that friendship with you. So that's something kind of
Okay.
spicy too of,
Mhm.
you know, people can be discerning with their time. We're all so busy. So how do you differentiate
Yeah.
yourself as a friend? And it's like, well, you can do these things. And
It kind of reminds me, I've been married for 17 years this May.
wow,
And
congrats.
I know I don't like identify with somebody as old enough to be married. 17 years. I did get
Wow.
married very young. But occasionally, and I don't stick with it very often, so I'm glad we're still married. Occasionally, I'll kind of have this thought where I'll slip into, because marriage does, I think one of the beautiful things about marriage is there is this assumption of longevity. And if you're not careful, that can become entitlement, right? Where it's
Mhm.
just like, we're married and we're going to be married no matter what, unless I do something very egregious.
Catastrophic,
And you,
right?
yeah, right, right. But you kind of stop, your game isn't your A game when you're thinking like that. And occasionally I'll have this thought in my marriage of like, oh, what if we were dating and I really wanted to marry him? How would I change? Like, how would my
Hmm.
daily interactions change? And they would change. Which to me, the
Step it
fact that
up.
there's a delta between like, I got this in the bag and I'm stuck with you no matter what, you're stuck with me, and like, ooh, I want you, can I get you? The fact that those are two kind of different ways of showing up shows me that I've kind of slipped more into like entitlement, making assumptions
Hmm.
mode versus like earning it mode, which I think in general, like, I don't think anybody wants to feel like on a daily basis they're earning being married, right? That's also very exhausting. But I think it's kind of like a similar thing in friendship. Like, what would it look like to just have that moment, that day where you were like, I'm
I'm a
auditioning
superstar.
to be this
Yeah.
person's friend. They're choosing at the end of the day, they're going to choose 3 friends to knock off the list. Would I change anything about how I'm showing up for this friend if I knew
Mhm.
that, the bachelor rose ceremony was happening at 7 p.m. tonight? And if the answer to that is like, oh, I would significantly change, that could be a kind of a good indicator that you're not bringing your A
You're not
game
bringing
and
your A
like
game.
being a great friend.
And it's really being discerning. Who am I going to bring that A game with and
Yes.
why? And then you're like
Yep.
literally setting yourself up for more than most people on this planet. Like you're setting yourself up for success.
Yes. Okay. I have one more question and I
Yeah,
promise I'll let you
sure.
go. Are you okay? You don't have
Yeah,
a hard stop?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay. I actually had a hard stop, but I just got an email that my next podcast guest canceled on me. So I'm gonna just keep talking to
Good
Anna.
news for
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Me too. Okay. So how do we balance this? I'm really, it is spicy. It's kind of provocative. This idea that the better friend you are, the more competitive the
Hmm.
landscape will be and the better friends you'll get. Very interested in that concept. And how does that concept, going all the way back to the beginning of the episode, how does that concept square with not wanting to do or promote ideas that leave people feeling more shame? So it's like if I was listening to this and listening to us
Mm.
chat and I'm like, I'm lonely, I don't have great friends, and I hear that, well, great friends get great friends, like, I think what that inspires in me is like, oh, they're saying I don't have friends because I'm a crappy friend. What would you say to a listener that called in and be like, well, Anna and Liz, you kind of just made me feel really shitty about myself?
Well, it's really about, I think people don't spend enough time thinking about these friends that they say they want so badly. And what is
Okay.
the
Hmm.
experience of being my friend? What is it like? What is in it for them? This is how people make decisions. This is how, like, we're seeing results in real time all the time of how people make decisions. So when you think about friend making, it's what am I bringing to the table? And it's not transactional as much as being aware of, this is a relationship. It's totally voluntary. It's a voluntary
Mm-hmm.
relationship, and it's a relationship of peers. It's one of the only relationships we have where it's on equal footing and doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
this power dynamic like employee, employer, parent, child. Like, it's a very special relationship. And not everyone is in a season where they can give friendships this much attention. It's very much like, and I even say in the book, like, it's, if you don't have time for this, if you don't have the bandwidth, that's fine. But if you are feeling negatively, if you are wondering why are my friendships in the ditch, it could be worth it to say, well, maybe like what am I providing these people? So much of friendship is people want like a girl gang or like people by their side, but the gig is to be that for someone else, to be
Mm-hmm.
their support. And that's the joy of friendship, is witnessing your friend's success, watching them, soar to new heights and triumphs. And it's like, I want to be a part of that. So when you
Yes.
come,
This reminds me of the research about the only thing that makes people happier than having a best friend
is
is being a
being a
best
best
friend.
friend, right?
That is just like it, you
Yes.
feel even happier and more
Yes.
fulfilled
And
when somebody looks at you and is like, she's my best friend.
and it's
And
yes, yes.
I love that.
It's a
I love
it's a
that.
measure of your integrity. It's a measure of your inner beauty. It's a measure of your good character. So it really is getting away from this entitlement to, I've been friends with this person since 5th grade. I'm entitled to get
Mm,
their attention indefinitely. And looking at it as, I am so lucky I get to be a part of my friend's life. How can I
yeah.
help them with what they care about? And that's a very different way to look at friendship. I would encourage people to really get rid of the entitlement. Just because
Yes.
you've
Yeah.
known someone since childhood or since school, there's no guarantee that your friendship is going to be active and be compelling to them. I mean, it
Yeah.
takes that elbow grease of like, well, what is our friendship about? And is it clear and is it compelling? You know?
Oh, this is so good. You are so right. Entitlement to friendship is one of the biggest boner killers to friendship ever.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it just immediately makes you feel defensive. It makes you feel protective. It makes you feel, I have been on the receiving end of feeling used or like
Yeah.
this extracting thing where it's just like you think that just because we X or X, you're gonna like, and that makes me, I get kind of like, can get self-protected, and it leads that person to a sense of, it's not only bad for friendship, it's also bad for agency, because the moment you feel entitled to something, the less you're like working towards it. So what I hear you saying is like, if you felt shame, while we're like, be a good friend and you're going to get great friends, don't feel shame, because it isn't like, one, you're in a structure. If you're listening to this and you
Mm.
are in the year of our Lord 2026 in modern day America, you've been dealt a crappy hand as it comes to like making social
Yeah. Harder
connections
than
and social
ever.
health easy. It's harder than ever. So
Mhm.
one, this isn't you. So many of us are experiencing this. Two, it's probably not that you're just an intrinsically unlovable, unlikable. It's not that you're not successful enough. It's not that you're not pretty enough. It's not that you're not charismatic enough. It's not that you're not whatever enough. It actually probably has nothing to do with like you're not enough of this thing that you don't even really feel like you can change about yourself. So like let's shift the focus from these intrinsic parts of who you are and instead take that introspection into, okay, let's objectively separate character and behavior and
Mm.
go, can I look at my behavior and go, I'm not a bad person. I'm not an intrinsically unlovable, unworthy of good relationships human. It's possible that I could use some work in my friend behaviors. And like, and that is the difference, I think,
Mhm.
between, I don't even know if this is true, but I say it like it is, that the difference between shame and guilt is that shame is I am bad and guilt is like I did a bad thing. And it's okay to be guilty sometimes. Like if you did a bad thing, it's actually very helpful to feel guilty. That's a great signal. But what's important and what keeps guilt from spiraling into shame is that we're separating out who you are intrinsically as a person from your patterns, from your behaviors, from your habits. And if we can look at our habits, our behaviors, our investments, our priorities a little bit more objectively and go, I'm not a bad person, but for the last 2 years, I've been a really bad friend. So how can I change the behaviors? Not like I'm just shit and I'm never going to have friends.
And it's really, we've been failed by the messages we've received about friendship. Like what friendship actually is a very different calling. It's about caring very deeply for other people. And it's not about people I did a survey, like what's the number one thing people wish their friends would do more? And the number one thing is reach out to them more. And it's like, well, why aren't they reaching out? Well, then that's what sort of where the thesis of the book came from, is like, well, why aren't we reaching out to people that we love? Well, do we have a reason to be in touch? Can we create a reason?
Yeah.
And you've talked about this in these other episodes of like, how do you create reasons and how do you work with people to make it easy for them to say yes, and really, really fight back against this culture of dinners and drinks? How do you break out of this just monotony of let's get lunch, let's get dinner, let's get drinks? It's like, what are we doing together? Why are we here? What do you want to be doing? Do you want to go to museum? I go to museum. Let's be museum friends. Let's, and just really negotiating with our friends of, you are a dynamic, incredible person. How can I be a part of what you see in this world? I want to be a part of it. That's a very different, prospect than, do you want to get a harvest bowl or something? It's like, I don't care about a harvest bowl. I want to like do stuff in the world. Do you want to see a band play? Yeah. Do you want to, see the new baby giraffe at the zoo? I'd love that. Like getting a little deeper of what do you care about? And let's do that together.
So good. Anna, I could talk to you.
I know, Liz, look at us.
Day.
Look at us.
All day. I feel so grateful for just your mild obsession. I say that in love from someone who shares a similar obsession for friendships and relationships. And honestly, just your gift of taking that interest and putting it into a format, primarily your book. Although, what other ways can we find you, follow you, learn from you?
Oh, I have a Substack called Friendship Explained at annagoldfarb.substack.com. And I'm on Instagram at Anna Goldfarb, one word. And also on my website, I have an excerpt of the book for free, like no sign up.
Okay, great.
No friction.
But honestly, but just buy the book.
Buy the book. And
I'm telling you.
Yes.
The excerpt, I'm telling you, it's really, really valuable. And it's so, and then I'll stop because I sound like I'm a paid affiliate for you. I make $2 off of every book. Just kidding. I make no money. But you do, like, I consider I think about this research and talk about it. I learned so much from your book, and it's so accessible. It's just like, if this is the first book on relationships or friendships you've ever bought, you will be very comfortable and you will be able to read it and it will be easy to understand. And that's a real gift that you have, to take a really complex topic and to break it down in a way that both somebody who's read 1,000 books on the subject would go, this was really good. And someone, if this is your first book, would go like, this was really good.